Captain Lisa Martinez stood on the bridge of her ship, watching the strange blue light that had appeared near Earth 3 weeks ago. The light looked like a crack in space itself, and strange energy readings came from it every few hours. Earth's best scientists could not explain what it was, but they knew it was not natural. Lisa had been chosen to lead the first team through the crack to see what was on the other side. She was young for a captain at 32, but she had proven herself in several dangerous missions. Her crew trusted her completely, and she trusted them with her life. Commander Amy Brooks stood beside her looking at the same readings on their screens. "Captain, the energy readings are getting stronger," Amy said while checking her instruments. Amy was Lisa's second in command and had served with her for 5 years. She was smart and brave and always spoke her mind when something worried. HER Dr. Claire Thompson walked onto the bridge carrying a tablet full of data. Claire was their team's expert on alien life and languages. She had spent years studying every signal that came from space, hoping to find proof of other intelligent life. Now that proof was right in front of them. "I think I understand what this is," Claire said with excitement in her voice. The energy patterns match theoretical models for dimensional rifts. There might be another world on the other side with people like us. Lieutenant Kate Morgan turned from her pilot station to listen. Kate was their best pilot and could fly anything with engines. She had grown up dreaming of exploring space and finding new worlds. Her hands were already moving over the controls, preparing their ship for the journey ahead. "Captain, we're getting a signal," Kate announced as her screen lit up with new information. "It's not like any language we know, but there are patterns that look like they might be trying to communicate." Lisa looked at the signal patterns on Kate's screen and felt her heart beat faster. This was the moment humanity had dreamed about for centuries. First contact with another intelligent species. She knew that everything they did in the next few hours could change the future of both worlds. "Claire, can you work on translating that signal?" Lisa asked while moving to the captain's chair. "Amy, prepare the ship for dimensional travel." "Kate, plot a course through that rift, but keep us ready to retreat if things go wrong." Meanwhile, on the other side of the dimensional crack, High Commander Sylvana Moonwhisper stood in her crystal tower watching the same blue light from her world. Sylvana had lived for over 800 years and had seen many strange things, but nothing like this crack in reality itself. Sylvana was tall and elegant with silver hair that reached her shoulders and green eyes that seemed to glow with inner light. She wore armor that looked like it was made from starlight and carried a sword that hummed with magical energy. She commanded the elven forces that protected her realm from dangers that came from other dimensions. Scout Captain Lirelay. Starweaver entered the tower moving with the silent grace that all elven scouts possessed. Lirelay was younger than Sylvana, at only 400 years old, but she was the best scout in their entire army. Her dark hair was braided with silver threads, and her bow was crafted from wood that came from the world tree itself. "High Commander, our sensors detect movement on the other side of the rift," Lirelay reported while bowing slightly. "There appears to be a vessel approaching our dimensional barrier. The design is unknown, but the energy signature suggests advanced technology." Sylvana nodded thoughtfully while studying the magical displays that showed her everything happening near their world. The elves had been watching the space around their realm for thousands of years, waiting for threats that might come through the darkness between stars. "What do you think of these newcomers?" Sylvana asked her scout captain. "They move with purpose, but not aggression," Lirelay answered after thinking for a moment. "Their ship shows signs of weapons, but they have not powered them for attack. I believe they are explorers rather than invaders." Healer Alan Dawnbringer joined them in the tower, carrying her staff of healing that glowed with warm golden light. Alan was responsible for taking care of all elven warriors who were hurt in battle, but she also studied the magic that could affect minds and emotions. She could sense the intentions of other beings, even across great distances. "I feel curiosity." From the other side, Alan said softly, while closing her eyes to focus her magical senses. "There is caution, but also hope. These beings want to learn about us, just as we want to learn about them." Far away in the dark space between Galaxy's Empress, Zixandra received reports about the dimensional rift from her spy ships. The Empress ruled the Zaltharian hegemony, which controlled thousands of star systems and billions of people. She was cruel and powerful, and believed that all other species existed only to serve her empire. Zixandra had purple skin that seemed to absorb light and 4 arms that each ended in claws, sharp enough to cut through metal. Her ships had conquered dozens of worlds, and she planned to conquer dozens more. When her spies told her about 2 new worlds that had found each other, she laughed at what seemed like good fortune. 2 primitive worlds that know nothing about galactic civilization, she said to General Velthari, who commanded her invasion. "Fleets. They will be easy to conquer, and their people will make excellent slaves." General Velthari was a veteran of many successful invasions, and had never seen her forces lose a battle. She believed that overwhelming force was the answer to every military problem. When primitive worlds saw her massive fleets, they usually surrendered without fighting. "Shall I prepare the full invasion fleet, Your Majesty?" Velthari asked, while reviewing the spy reports on her personal display. "Do not waste our main forces on such weak opponents," Zixandra replied with amusement. "Send 50,000 ships. That should be more than enough to handle 2 backward worlds that have barely discovered each other." Admiral Keshira received her orders to lead the invasion fleet and began preparing her ships for the journey to the dimensional rift. She commanded some of the most powerful warships in the galaxy and had crushed resistance on hundreds of worlds. The idea that 2 primitive planets could resist her forces seemed ridiculous. Back near Earth, Lisa's ship slowly moved through the dimensional rift, while every crew member held their breath. The journey felt like moving through thick liquid made of light and energy. Strange colors flowed past their windows, and their instruments showed readings that should have been impossible. When they finally emerged on the other side, they found themselves looking at a world that seemed too beautiful to be real. Green forests covered rolling hills, while crystal cities sparkled in the light of 2 suns. Rivers of pure water flowed between mountains that reached toward clouds made of silver mist. "My God," Claire whispered as she stared at the magnificent world before them. "It's like something from a fairy tale." Suddenly, their communication system came alive with a clear voice speaking perfect English. "Welcome, travelers from the distant realm. I am High Commander Sylvana Moonwhisper, and I greet you in the name of all elven people. We have been waiting to meet you." Lisa felt amazement fill her heart as she realized that these beings had learned their language just from listening to their transmissions. She activated her own communication system and spoke the words that would change both worlds forever. "This is Captain Lisa Martinez, representing the people of Earth. We come in peace, hoping to learn about your civilization and share knowledge that might benefit both our worlds." Neither Lisa nor Sylvana knew that Empress Zixandra's invasion fleet was already traveling toward them through the darkness of space. 3 days had passed since Lisa's ship arrived in the Elven realm, and the 2 species were learning about each other with growing excitement. Dr. Claire Thompson worked with Elven scholars in their great library, translating thousands of years of knowledge, while Captain Lisa Martinez met with High Commander Sylvana to discuss their worlds and their hopes for the future. The elves lived in harmony with nature, using magic to grow their cities from living crystal and to power their flying ships without harming their environment. They had developed technology that humans could barely understand, but they were fascinated by human engineering and the way humans solved problems through cooperation and innovation. Lieutenant Kate Morgan spent her time with elven pilots learning how they flew their ships through pure thought and magical energy. The elven ships could change shape and move in ways that seemed to break the laws of physics, but Kate's quick mind grasped the basic principles, and she began to understand how human technology might work together with elven magic. Commander Amy Brooks worked with Scout Captain Lirelei Starweaver to study military tactics and defensive strategies. Amy was impressed by the elven ability to coordinate attacks across multiple dimensions, while Lirelei admired human flexibility and the way human soldiers could adapt quickly to changing situations on the battlefield. Sergeant Maya Davis had arrived with a small team of human Marines to provide security for the diplomatic mission. Maya was tough and experienced with short brown hair and scars from several battles. But she was also curious about other cultures and eager to learn from the elven warriors who protected their realm. The elven military was unlike anything humans had ever seen. Their warriors could teleport short distances, and their archers could shoot arrows that curved through space to hit targets behind cover. Healer Alan Dawnbringer showed Maya how elven magic could heal wounds instantly and even bring soldiers back from the edge of death. Your people and our people have much to teach each other, Sylvana said to Lisa as they walked through gardens where flowers sang in harmony with the wind. Perhaps together we can build something greater than either of us could create alone. Lisa nodded while watching elven children play games that involved making small objects float in the air. Our scientists back on Earth are going to be amazed when they hear about what you can do with magic. We've always believed that magic was just fantasy, but you've proven that it's another form of science. We don't understand yet. They're peaceful. Discussion was interrupted when Lirelei appeared suddenly using her teleportation magic. The scout captain's face was grave, and she carried urgent news that would change everything for both worlds. High Commander, our deep space sensors have detected a massive fleet approaching our dimensional rift, Lirelei reported while catching her breath. The ships are of unknown design, but they number in the tens of thousands, and they are armed for war. Lisa felt her blood turn cold as she realized what this meant. Someone else had discovered the rift between their worlds, and they were coming with an invasion fleet. She activated her communication device to contact her ship immediately. Kate, this is the captain. Get our ship ready for emergency departure and send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we have a situation that requires immediate military support. Within minutes, both human and elven forces were preparing for battle. Lisa's small diplomatic ship was joined by 6 elven warships that had been patrolling nearby space. The elven ships looked like works of art, with hulls that seemed to be made from crystal and metal that flowed like water. But Amy took command of the human ship's defensive systems while Kate prepared for combat flying. Maya and her Marines worked with elven warriors to plan boarding actions if the enemy ships got too close. Claire used her knowledge of alien languages to try to establish communication with the approaching fleet. The Zaltharian invasion fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the star system like a cloud of deadly metal insects. Admiral Keshira stood on the bridge of her flagship looking at the sensor readings that showed 2 small groups of ships near the dimensional rift. Is that all the resistance these primitives can offer? She asked General Valthari, who had come to observe the easy victory. 7 ships against 50,000 of ours. This will be over in minutes. The general studied the tactical display and noticed something interesting about the enemy formation. The ship designs are completely different from each other. It appears that 2 separate species are working together. Even better, Keshira replied with cruel satisfaction. We can conquer 2 worlds for the price of 1 invasion. Begin the attack. The first wave of Zaltharian fighters swept toward the small defending force like a pack of metal wolves. Each fighter was heavily armed and protected by energy shields that could stop most weapons. The Zaltharian pilots had never lost a battle and expected this fight to end quickly. They were surprised when the human ship opened fire with weapons that seemed impossibly accurate. Lisa's crew had been trained to fight against overwhelming odds, and they made every shot count. Amy coordinated their defensive fire, while Kate flew evasive maneuvers that kept them alive against impossible odds. The Elven ships fought in a completely different way that confused the Zaltharian battle computers. Sylvana's vessels could phase in and out of normal space, making them impossible to target, while their weapons fired beams of pure magical energy that cut through enemy shields like they were made of paper. Archery Master Thalassa Nidero stood on the deck of the lead, Elven ship firing her enchanted bow at enemy fighters. Her arrows were made from crystallized starlight, and each one could track its target through space and time. When they hit Zaltharian ships, they exploded with the force of small suns. "These primitive ships are destroying our fighters," one of Kashira's officers reported with disbelief in his voice. "Their weapons are unlike anything in our databases, and our shields seem to be ineffective against their energy types." Maya and her marines used teleportation magic provided by Elven allies to board damaged Zaltharian ships and capture prisoners for interrogation. Maya was amazed at how well human combat training worked together with Elven magical abilities. Her soldiers could now appear anywhere on the battlefield without warning. The battle continued for 2 hours with the small, defending force holding their own against overwhelming numbers. Every time the Zaltharians thought they had found a weakness in the defense, the humans and elves would adapt their tactics and turn the tables on their attackers. Dr. Claire Thompson worked frantically to decode Zaltharian communications and learn about their enemies. She discovered that the Zaltharians had expected an easy victory and were shocked by the resistance they were facing. Their commanders were calling for reinforcements and questioning whether their intelligence about primitive worlds had been accurate. Healer Allen used her magic to keep human and elven ships fighting, even when they should have been disabled by battle damage. Her healing powers worked on metal and crystal, just as well as on living flesh, and she could repair ships faster than the enemy could damage them. When the first wave of Zaltharian fighters had been destroyed, Admiral Kashira stared at her tactical display in disbelief. Her 50,000 ship fleet had lost 3,000 fighters to 7 defending ships, and the enemy was still fighting at full strength. "This is impossible," she said to General Velthari. "Our battle computers show that we should have won this fight in the first 5 minutes. How are they still resisting us?" "Perhaps these species are not as primitive as our spies reported," Velthari replied while studying the battle recordings. "Look at how perfectly they coordinate their attacks. The magic users provide cover while the technology users strike at our weak points." Lisa watched from her ship's bridge as more Zaltharian vessels moved to attack positions. She knew that her small force could not hold out forever against such overwhelming numbers, but every minute they fought gave Earth and the Elven realm more time to prepare their real defenses. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the enemy." "Fleet," Claire announced from her communication station. The main screen showed Admiral Kashira's face, twisted with anger and frustration. "Primitive species, you have fought bravely, but you cannot win against the might of the Zaltharian hegemony. Surrender now, and we will make your enslavement quick and painless." Lisa looked at Sylvana, who stood beside her on the bridge connected by magical communication across the space between their ships. Both leaders smiled at the same time, knowing that their enemy had made a serious mistake. "Admiral Kashira," Lisa replied calmly, "you seem to think that this is our main defense force. I'm afraid you're going to be very disappointed when you discover what we can really do." Empress Juice Andra received these reports with growing rage and fear. The idea that her empire could be threatened by any enemy was unthinkable, but the evidence was clear. 2 million of her best ships had been defeated by a force that seemed to grow stronger with each battle. Marshal Kixif, she commanded her supreme military leader, assemble the core armadas. 10 million ships will crush these rebels once and for all. Admiral Hayes and High Commander Sylvana met aboard the Eternal Dawn to plan their response to the inevitable third wave of Zaltharian attacks. Both leaders knew that they had revealed only a fraction of their true military capabilities, and the enemy was about to discover just how badly they had underestimated their opponents. The Zaltharians still think they're fighting primitive worlds, Hayes said while reviewing intelligence reports about hegemony military doctrine. They keep sending larger fleets using the same tactics that worked against helpless victims. Sylvana smiled while studying magical displays that showed her the movement of enemy forces across multiple dimensions. Then perhaps it's time to show them what our worlds can really do when we stop holding back. Empress Juice Andra received these reports with growing rage and fear. The idea that her empire could be threatened by any enemy was unthinkable, but the evidence was clear. 2 million of her best ships had been defeated by a force that seemed to grow stronger with each battle. Marshal Kixif, she commanded her supreme military leader, assemble the core armadas. 10 million ships will crush these rebels once and for all. Admiral Hayes and High Commander Sylvana met aboard the Eternal Dawn to plan their response to the inevitable third wave of Zaltharian attacks. Both leaders knew that they had revealed only a fraction of their true military capabilities, and the enemy was about to discover just how badly they had underestimated their opponents. The Zaltharians still think they're fighting primitive worlds, Hayes said while reviewing intelligence reports about hegemony military doctrine. They keep sending larger fleets using the same tactics that worked against helpless victims. Sylvana smiled while studying magical displays that showed her the movement of enemy forces across multiple dimensions. Then perhaps it's time to show them what our worlds can really do when we stop holding back. 2 weeks passed before the Zaltharian reinforcements arrived, and during that time the human and elven alliance worked frantically to prepare for the much larger battle they knew was coming. The dimensional rift had been expanded again to allow even more ships to pass between the two worlds, and both species shared their most advanced technology and magical knowledge. Captain Lisa Martinez found herself promoted to Admiral of the combined fleet as more human ships arrived from Earth's hidden colonies. She had learned that Earth was not just one world, but the center of a growing interstellar civilization that included 47 colony worlds, each with its own defense fleets and shipbuilding facilities. High Commander Sylvana revealed that the Elven realm was actually connected to 12 different dimensional planes, each inhabited by elven communities that had developed their own unique magical abilities. The portal network that linked these realms had existed for thousands of years and could transport entire fleets instantly across vast distances. Dr. Claire Thompson worked with elven scholars to create new weapons that combined human technology with elven magic. They developed missiles that could phase through enemy shields and energy weapons that drew power directly from stars. Most importantly, they created communication systems that allowed perfect coordination between ships from different dimensions. Lieutenant Kate Morgan became the first human pilot certified to fly elven ships using pure thought control. She discovered that human imagination worked perfectly with elven magic, allowing her to perform maneuvers that even experienced elven pilots found impressive. Her hybrid flying style became the model for training other human pilots in magical ship control. Commander Amy Brooks established the Combined Fleet Academy, where human officers learned elven tactics while elven commanders studied human strategy. The two species discovered that their different approaches to warfare complemented each other, perfectly creating new fighting methods that were more effective than either could achieve alone. Sergeant Maya Davis led the 1st Joint Special Forces unit, combining human Marines with elven shadow warriors. Her team could teleport into enemy ships' attack with devastating efficiency and disappear before the enemy could respond. They became so effective that Zaltharian captains began to fear boarding actions more than direct ship combat. When Admiral Thrain arrived with the Zaltharian sector fleet of 2 million ships, she expected to find the same small defending force that had somehow gotten lucky against Admiral Keshira's invasion fleet. Instead, her sensors detected nearly 10,000 human warships and 3,000 elven vessels arranged in a defensive formation that stretched across the entire star system. "This is impossible," Thrain said to her tactical officers while studying the sensor readings. "Our intelligence reports said these worlds had barely developed space travel. How can they have produced so many military vessels?" Her science officer reviewed the data carefully before responding. "Admiral, the human ships show construction techniques that suggest they have been building warships for at least 50 years. The elven vessels appear to be much older, possibly centuries old, but they have been modified with technology that our computers cannot identify." General Velthari had remained with the fleet to observe the second battle, and she noticed something that made her very concerned. "Admiral, look at how perfectly coordinated their formation is. Every ship knows exactly where every other ship is positioned. That level of coordination should be impossible for two species that just met each other." The truth was that humans and elves had discovered they could share thoughts and emotions through magical links that connected their minds across space. Human tactical thinking combined with elven intuition created a group intelligence that could process information and make decisions faster than any computer system. Admiral Patricia Hayes commanded the human portion of the combined fleet from her flagship, while High Commander Sylvana led the elven forces from the Bridge of the Eternal Dawn. The two commanders were linked by a magical communication system that allowed them to coordinate their forces as if they were sharing the same mind. "Admiral Thrain is moving her fleet into attack formation," Hayes reported to Sylvana through their mental link. "Her ships are arranged for a frontal assault with overwhelming firepower. She's using the same tactics that worked against primitive worlds. Then she's about to learn why those tactics won't work against us," Sylvana replied, while directing her ships to take positions that would surprise the enemy. "Human ships will engage at long range while elven vessels phase into close combat. Positions. Let's show them what real coordination looks like." The battle began when Thrain ordered her first wave of 500,000 ships to advance on the Allied formation. She intended to crush the defenders with sheer numbers, believing that no defense could stand against such overwhelming force. The human ships opened fire, first launching missiles that seemed to appear from nowhere as they phased in and out of normal space. Each missile was guided by artificial intelligence, enhanced with elven precognition, allowing them to predict where enemy ships would be before the enemy pilots had even decided to change course. Archery Master Thalassa stood on the Bridge of the Eternal Dawn, using the ship's magical amplifiers to fire arrows that could strike targets in other star systems. Her arrows were now made from crystallized time itself, and when they hit enemy ships, they created temporal distortions that aged the target vessels into scrap metal within seconds. The elven fleet demonstrated new abilities they had developed. By combining their dimensional magic with human engineering, entire ships could now teleport instantly across the battlefield, appearing behind enemy formations and attacking from unexpected angles before vanishing again. Maya's special forces. Teens had been inserted into the Zaltharian fleet before the battle began using long-range teleportation magic. They sabotaged key enemy ships from within while gathering intelligence about Zaltharian command structures and battle plans. Healer Alan had learned to use her magical abilities to disrupt enemy ship systems from a distance. She could reach across space with her mind and cause critical failures in enemy weapons and engines, making entire groups of ships helpless against Allied attacks. The first wave of Zaltharian ships was destroyed within 3 hours, with minimal Allied casualties. Admiral Thrain stared at her tactical display in shock, as 500,000 of her best warships were reduced to floating debris by an enemy force 1/5 their size. "How are they destroying our ships so quickly?" she demanded from her tactical officer. "Our shields should protect us from their weapons, and our numbers should overwhelm their defenses." "Admiral, their weapons seem to ignore our shields completely," the officer replied with fear in his voice. "And their ships can appear anywhere on the battlefield without warning. Our targeting computers cannot track them effectively." Dr. Claire Thompson had been monitoring Zaltharian communications throughout the battle, and she reported to Admiral Hayes that panic was spreading through the enemy fleet as their commanders realized they were facing an enemy completely unlike anything they had encountered before. "Admiral Thrain is requesting immediate reinforcements from the Hegemony Home Fleet," Claire announced. "She's telling them that the primitive worlds have somehow acquired technology that makes their ships nearly invulnerable." The battle continued for 2 days, with wave after wave of Zaltharian ships being destroyed by the combined fleet. The enemy's massive numbers became meaningless when they could not hit targets that phased out of normal space or defend against weapons that ignored their shields. Admiral Thrain watched her once mighty sector fleet being systematically destroyed by enemies who seemed to know her every move before she made it. She had lost over 1,000,000 ships, while the Allied forces had suffered fewer than 100 casualties. "General Valthari, we are facing total defeat," she admitted while watching another 1,000 of her ships disappear in brilliant explosions. "These species have military capabilities that are beyond our understanding. We need to retreat immediately." Valthari had been studying the battle recordings, and she had reached a terrifying conclusion. "Admiral, I don't think these are primitive worlds at all. I think they are advanced civilizations that have been hiding their true capabilities. We may have started a war with enemies who are far more powerful than us." The surviving Zaltharian ships began retreating toward the edge of the star system, while sending desperate messages to the hegemony capital. Their reports spoke of enemies who could bend space and time to their will and weapons that seemed to be powered by forces beyond known science. The arrival of the Zaltharian Corps armadas 3 weeks later created the largest concentration of military force the galaxy had ever seen. 10 million warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the star system like a cloud of metal locusts ready to devour everything in their path. Marshal Kixif commanded the massive fleet from her super dreadnought flagship that was larger than most space stations. She had never lost a battle in 500 years of conquest, and she intended to end this embarrassing rebellion with overwhelming force that would be remembered for millennia. "All fleet commanders, this is Marshal Kixif," she announced through the Armada communication system. "We will advance in formation and destroy every ship, every station, and every living thing in this system. No mercy will be shown to those who dare resist the hegemony." Empress Zixandra watched the battle preparations from her throne room, confident that 10 million ships would finally crush the primitive alliance that had somehow defeated her previous fleets. She had committed nearly half of her empire's total military strength to this single battle. Admiral Lisa Martinez stood on the bridge of her new flagship, surrounded by holographic displays showing the enormous enemy fleet approaching their positions. She had been promoted again to Supreme Commander of the Combined Defense Force and now coordinated the military efforts of both species. "All ships, this is Supreme Commander Martinez," she announced to the Allied fleet. "Today we show the galaxy what happens when free people stand together against tyranny. Earth Command has authorized the release of Project Deep Strike. High Commander Sylvana performed the grand awakening ritual in the crystal chamber at the heart of the eternal dawn. Ancient elven magic reached across 12 dimensions, calling forth the true military might of her people that had been hidden. For thousands of years, the dimensional rift that connected the human and elven realms suddenly expanded to cover hundreds of kilometers as massive fleets began emerging from both sides. These were not the expeditionary forces that had fought the previous battles, but the home defense fleets that protected the core worlds of both civilizations. Earth's side came the home fleet, consisting of 50,000 of humanity's most advanced warships. These vessels incorporated technology from dozens of colony worlds and had been designed to fight enemies that humanity had not even discovered yet. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a moon. Through the elven portals came the ancient fleet ships that had been built over thousands of years, using magic that had been perfected across countless generations. These vessels existed partially outside normal space and time, making them nearly impossible to destroy while carrying weapons that could unravel the fabric of reality itself. Commander Amy Brooks coordinated the deployment of human industrial ships that began constructing battle stations and weapons platforms throughout the star system. Human engineering combined with elven magic allowed them to build fortifications that materialized from pure energy in a matter of hours. Lieutenant Kate Morgan led squadrons of hybrid fighters that combined human technology with elven magic in ways that created entirely new forms of combat aircraft. Her pilots could fly through solid matter, teleport across the battlefield, and fire weapons that existed in multiple dimensions. Simultaneously, Dr. Claire Thompson had become the chief coordinator between human science and elven magic, creating new weapons and defensive systems that neither species could have developed alone. Her work had produced shields that could absorb enemy fire and convert it into power for allied weapons. Sergeant Maya Davis commanded special forces units that included humans, elves, and volunteers from species that had been liberated from Zaltharian slavery. Her teams could strike anywhere in the galaxy using teleportation networks that connected friendly worlds across multiple star systems. But the greatest surprise came when both Earth and the Elven realm revealed their true nature. Earth was not just one world, but the capital of an interstellar federation that included over 200 colony worlds spread across 50 star systems. The Elven realm was revealed to be a nexus connecting 47 different dimensional planes, each home to billions of elven people. Marshal Kixith stared at her sensor displays as more and more allied ships continued to emerge from the expanding dimensional rift. Her tactical computers had stopped counting enemy vessels when the numbers reached over 100,000 ships, and new contacts were still appearing. "This is impossible," she said to General Velthari, who had joined her aboard the flagship. "Intelligence reported that we were attacking two primitive worlds with limited military forces. Where are all these ships coming from?" Velthari studied the sensor data with growing horror as she realized the true scope of their enemy's military power. "Marshal, I believe our intelligence was completely wrong. These are not primitive worlds, but major galactic powers that have been concealing their true strength." The Allied fleet that faced the Zaltharian armadas now numbered over 200,000 ships, representing the combined military might of hundreds of worlds and dozens of dimensional realms. But more importantly, every ship was crewed by warriors who fought for freedom and cooperation rather than conquest and domination. Admiral Patricia Hayes commanded the human forces, while High Commander Sylvana led the elven fleets, but their coordination was so perfect that they seemed to share a single mind. The magical links that connected their consciousness allowed them to command their vast fleets with precision that no computer system could match. The battle that followed lasted for 7 days and changed the course of galactic history. The Zaltharian core armadas fought with desperate fury, knowing that defeat would mean the end of their empire, but they faced enemies who had spent centuries preparing for exactly this kind of conflict. Human ships used advanced artificial intelligence to coordinate attacks across multiple star systems, while elven vessels phased in and out of normal space, striking from impossible angles. The combination of human tactical flexibility with elven magical abilities created new forms of warfare that the Zaltharians could not counter. Archery master, the lasso-fired arrows made from crystallized space itself that could travel between galaxies and strike targets with the force of exploding stars. Her weapons had been enhanced by human technology, allowing her to target thousands of enemy ships simultaneously. Healer, Alan used her magical abilities to turn the Zaltharian ship's own weapons against them, causing enemy missiles to change course and attack their launching vessels. She had learned to heal by removing negative influences, and she applied this principle to remove the aggression from enemy weapon systems. The tide of battle turned completely when liberated species from former Zaltharian slave worlds began joining the Allied fleet. Worlds that had been conquered centuries ago revealed hidden resistance movements that had been waiting for exactly this opportunity to strike back at their oppressors. Within 6 days, Marshal Kixith had lost 8 million ships, while the Allied forces had suffered relatively light casualties. Her remaining vessels were scattered across the star system, many too damaged to fight effectively, while others had surrendered to avoid complete destruction. Marshal, we have lost the battle, General Velthari reported with defeat heavy in her voice. Our remaining ships cannot continue fighting against such overwhelming opposition. We must surrender or face total annihilation. The proud Marshal, who had never known defeat, stared at the tactical display, showing her shattered armadas, and finally accepted the unthinkable truth. Signal the enemy fleet that we request terms for surrender. Supreme Commander Lisa Martinez received the surrender request aboard her flagship while surrounded by the leaders of dozens of species that had joined the Allied cause. She looked at High Commander Silvana, who nodded with the wisdom of her 800 years. Marshal Kixith, this is Supreme Commander Martinez. Lisa replied to the enemy's transmission. We accept your surrender, but I want you to understand something. The force you've been fighting is our peacekeeping fleet, not our main military. The Marshal's 4 eyes widened in shock as the implication of those words sank in. You mean this wasn't your full army? Full army, Lisa replied with a slight smile. Marshal, this was just our local defense force. Our actual military reserves are still at home tending their gardens and preparing for classes tomorrow. High Commander Silvana added her own voice to the communication. The fleets you fought were volunteers who came to help defend our new friends. The warriors whose job it is to fight wars are still on their home worlds because we didn't think we needed them. Empress Zixandra received the news of her empire's total defeat in stunned silence. 10 million ships, the pride of her military, had been destroyed by enemies who claimed they had barely tried. For the first time in her long life, she felt genuine fear. The surrender negotiations took place on a neutral space station constructed jointly by human and elven engineers. Representatives from hundreds of worlds attended to witness the end of the Zaltharian hegemony and the birth of a new galactic government based on cooperation rather than conquest. Dr. Claire Thompson served as the chief negotiator for the Allied forces working to establish terms that would prevent future wars while allowing former hegemony worlds to join the new galactic cooperative as equals rather